Well, it's very nice to meet you, Ben. Thank you for joining me today.
It's my pleasure. My pleasure.
So obviously, could you tell us a little bit about the show, just for anyone who hasn't seen The Shawshank Redemption?
Well, we're involved in an adaptation of the film slash book by Stephen King, The Shawshank Redemption, which was originally titled Rita Hayworth and The Shawshank Redemption. And we all know the film with Morgan Freeman, Tim Robbins, but this is an adaptation which blends what was written in the novella by Stephen King and the movie that everybody knows, the iconic movie that everybody says is their favorite movie of all time when polls are made in Great Britain. So I think Bill Kenwright's production company decided to, put it out there, particularly in a period in English history where hope is something that we all need, and a bit of optimism. And it's a story about, well, as you all know, those who are listening, if anybody's out there listening, it's a play about chaps in a penitentiary in Maine in America, and they're, to all intents and purposes, in there for life. The character I play is in there for 30 years for murder. And quite a lot of the guys in that institution have a similar story. And it's about their relationships, how they bond, hate each other, the brutality that they share, and the corruption in this institution, and how the relationship between Morgan, I keep saying Morgan Freeman because he's like iconic as the character on the screen. But for your listeners, in the original, Redding was actually an Irish American. Bizarrely, the filmmakers decided to use Morgan Freeman, who's not Irish. Anyway, it's all about hope, and it's about the bonding of two guys in there, Andy Dufresne and Red Redding, and the rest, as they say, is in novelistic history.
Yeah, I mean, it is a really great story. I love the movie, and I mean, there are some really sad bits in it, but obviously you play Ellis Red Redding. Can you tell us a little bit about your character?
Yes, well, Ellis Red Redding, as we learn quite early on in the story, has kind of come to terms with the fact that the murder he committed, which was in some legislation would be described as a crime of passion. He killed his wife, essentially, or fixed the brakes on her car in order to murder her because she was betraying him, which he regrets. Of course, he regrets. But what happened was she died, as did the person and child that she was in a car with, So of course, he's sort of accepted his fate when he was convicted and sent down for life. So what he's developed in this institution is he's become the fixer. That's what keeps him going in this shithole. Oh, I said the word. That's a line from the play. From this rather depraved institution, he gets by fixing things for people, acquiring things that should not be allowed in prisons, and he lists of things like marijuana, reefer, cigarettes, alcohol, anything people want that they can kind of acquire just to get through this miserable period of their lives. So that's how he gets on. And once he meets Andy Dufresne, he kind of acknowledges this guy who's a kind of a separate entity from the rest of these guys, because he's in there, he's been framed. He acknowledges that and realizes that gradually that this guy is entirely here unfairly. So they kind of form a bond.
Yeah.
And eventually they just kind of help each other to tolerate the institution, get through the day together, And I don't know how much people know about the story, but Andy Dufresne eventually gets let off. This is after years and years of struggle and campaigning to get his trial reheard. And I won't tell you anymore. They reunite outside. It's a wonderful journey, and our play has a set which is just the prison bars and different offices and the recreation ground where all the prisoners meet. And there's lots of brutal scenes where we see the kind of brutal activity that they get on with in that institution. But while the forming relationship between these two guys is presented in such a beautiful way that you begin to see what they have in common. They're both bright men, one a convict, the other one falsely convicted. And they begin to form a rapport which helps them through it.
Yeah, I really do like their relationship. It is a really great sort of friendship that you see building up throughout the film.
Yes, it's like those bromance films of yesteryear. You know, it's two guys together who actually essentially are good people. Well, not good people. I mean, what's good and bad is a grey area, but they're both empathetic people. They're both people with an attitude that there's hope for everybody, and that's how it should be, rather than being written off as a criminal for life, you know. And as Red says, he's not a murderer for the rest of his life, you know. He, despite being judged not being rehabilitated, he is in a way, because he's come to terms with his criminality and wants to better himself and get out, you know. Meanwhile, Andy Dufresne has never committed a crime, although he's been involved in nefarious activities which are borderline criminal, but are not criminal in the accepted sense, you know. So they form a relationship which is wonderful to behold. Wonderful to behold.
Yeah. So of course you're in London's Burning for 11 years, and you're on Professor T on ITV, just to name a couple of things you've done. But how does it feel to step into Red's shoes and sort of tour with the show?
Oh, it's a very daunting prospect, I must admit. When I was approached to do the part, I was overwhelmed by the prospect of having to step into the shoes of Red Redding. I mean, as you said, my past is kind of playing recall firefighter on telly, or, you know, a British policeman, or various other characters on television. But the idea of playing as an iconic American part in a production of this nature was very daunting. And, you know, you first think, well, have I got to be Morgan Freeman? Because that's how everybody sees the part of Red Redding. So, you know, my decision was to portray a suggestion of Morgan Freeman, but actually make the part my own. So what you see is Ben Onwukwe as Red Redding.
Yeah.
So it's in a essence, it's a version. And that's what happens in a lot of our industry. Somebody like Sherlock Holmes, shall we say. I mean, there's so many portrayals of Sherlock Holmes, shall we say, although the character's written in a book, but then there's shades of interpretation of the part that, and my interpretation is slightly more agile than Morgan. Morgan's portrayal is very still and reflective and kind, but precise. My interpretation is slightly more agile. It's got a bit more humor and a little bit more energy. And I think I'm fractionally younger than Morgan when he played the part, but I don't know.
Yeah, well, I think you'll do a fantastic job. But how was the rehearsals? What was the sort of process you had to go through for it?
Well, the process, it was a combination of kind of referencing the novella as our first point of call, rather than just the film, so that we unpicked the details of the relationship and the progression of the relationship. And so it was very interesting just to sit down together and discuss what it is that we acknowledge in each other that causes us to have that friendship. And we kind of agreed that is an identification that we both see the world in a particular way. We both see the world as essentially a place where people should have an opportunity for rehabilitation, should have an opportunity to see hope and positivity as the way they should live, rather than being dragged down by being judged by society and having no hope, no outcome that's going to fulfill you. So that's how we discussed it in rehearsal, that we've got to, but there's always lots of obstacles when you're in an institution like that. There's the people that want to brutalize you. There's portrayal of gang rape, I have to say. There is guards that want to be extremely harsh and cruel, which everybody has to deal with. So the guys in that institution have to find ways of protecting each other. So they do it through all sorts of devices to protect themselves from the misery of what it's like. And they find a way. And it's wonderful to behold. It gives everybody hope. And that's the theme of the book, I suppose. Hope is a good thing, maybe the best of things, and no good thing ever dies, according to Andy Dufresne in a letter.
Yeah, so obviously the show's touring at the moment. It'll be at Alhambra Theatre in Bradford, 20th to 25th of March. So where can people find tickets?
I think the normal process is to go on the Alhambra box office website and start booking now. I think it's selling terribly well, but there's always going to be seats, because what we like is to have an absolutely packed audience so that everybody engages in this wonderful story. So Bradford Alhambra will be happy to furnish you with tickets. Come one and all. I only give you a warning that it's not appropriate for under 14s, really, because there are scenes in it of a parental guidance nature, as you can imagine. So that's how you get tickets. So be warned. It's not nice in some parts, but the ending is worth it alone.
Yeah. But how have you been finding the tour?
It's been, well, I mean, it's interesting for an actor to tour the United Kingdom and just to see the different towns and cities that this wonderful country of ours has. It really is. It's great. I mean, we've just been to Cheltenham. We're currently in Stoke, which are two contrasting parts of England, let's face it. Cheltenham, which is lovely sandstone houses and squares and streets and all sorts of lovely things, chocolate box. And now we're in Stoke, which is a slightly more industrial history town, potteries, and has a completely different vibe, a great, but obviously not as, how can I describe it, salubrious, is that the right word, as the great Cheltenham is, you know? So it's for us, it's a real eye-opener just to see Britain, recessionary Britain, in all its different guises. So we're so looking forward to coming to Bradford, because we know Bradford is a very vibrant and modern town. So it's a city, actually, isn't it? Bradford City.
Yeah.
Which has got a football team, is that right? I'm not sure how they're doing. I'm not up to speed on them. They're progressing there, and then the championship.
I have no idea. I don't follow sports.
You don't follow. Okay.
I'm not a sporty person.
Well, we can't get to see football matches unless Sunday. You're not following football. Okay. Well, we're looking forward to being in Bradford, and we hope many people come to see this fantastic production.
Well, that's great to hear. So thank you very much for talking to me today. It's been a pleasure, and good luck with all of your shows as well.
Yeah, thank you so much, Amelia.